So why do we need a case study? To understand this, we must first understand the importance of storytelling. It is a well-known saying that people may forget what you said to them, but they won't ever forget how you made them feel. A story with an interesting narrative does just that. Since time immemorial, storytelling has been at the center of human existence, and its power in the form of a case study can be leveraged to create an emotional connection with potential clients, making them more invested in your services. A case study done right can act as a narrative document that captures the challenges, solutions, and outcomes of a project, and presents them in the form of an interesting story. And that is why a case study of your past projects is such a decisive piece of content you must have in your Upwork profile. Reason number 2 is to create trust and credibility. We know stories can be engaging, but can they be trustworthy? Can someone buy from you based on an interesting story alone? I guess not. And therefore, we must also incorporate into our case study another factor that not only makes it interesting, but also trustworthy. You must have heard the statement, repeat a lie often enough and people will believe it. This is called the illusory truth effect. No, we are not going to exploit this technique for impressing our clients, besides it being unethical. Instead, we are going to leverage the illusory truth effect in another way. Did you know that by inducing vivid and specific details into a story, it can be made to appear credible and trustworthy too? When something is told in extreme detail, the human mind tends to believe it as true. Similarly, if we create a case study document that is extremely detailed, we can very much replicate the same effect in our customer's mind as looking at a valid Upwork testimonial. Combine this with a story-like narrative as explained earlier, and you are all set to impact the customer both at emotional as well as logical level. Now that we have understood why we need a case study and what makes a case study so impactful, let us look at a case study document that qualifies this criteria. Just like a good novel, we start our case study document with a catchy opening sequence. A title intro like this immediately puts the viewer at ease because they now knows it's not another boring document they will have to plod through. Next, we immediately introduce the story's main antagonist or the villain. In other words, the project's main challenge or the problem we are trying to solve. Just like a good story relies on a good exposition, we now introduce the part that portrays your or author's internal conflict or mental struggle with deconstructing the problem at hand. Next, we now arrive at the solution which you devised to address the project's problem. In other words, the battle plan. The next and probably the most important section of a case study is to help your audience visualize how you actually fought the battle. So now we need to demonstrate a detailed, step-by-step explanation of the project's implementation. For example, what were the tiniest of interesting challenges you faced during the course of the project and how exactly did you overcome those? The final part is to showcase the win. We do this by demonstrating the outcome of the solution you implemented and how it helped the client reach their intended objective. In other words, what was the overall impact of your solution in terms of a measurable goal? For example, was there an increase in revenue or number of signups, etc., as applicable? Oh, and what's a win without a celebration? So, as the ultimate step, we now showcase what could be called the project's takeaway. Something like a memento or the moment that made this project cherishable to you and to the client. By incorporating these or related patterns of storytelling in your case study, besides making it visually attractive and vivid, you can make a very impressionable piece of document for the ages. Something that can really help you win customers in a very short span of time, which would otherwise require years of impeccable Upwork history.